Welcome to Crawlspace. I'm Tim here today with Lance. Lance, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic today, Tim. The guest that we have on is a gentleman who really gets into it. And I love it when our guests really get into it. He has this sort of anti-hero quality about him. He's got a great voice. He's got an absolutely ridiculous voice. And we weren't able to capture his video, which is very apropos to what he's done in his life and the context of this interview. And he also has probably the most apropos book title I've ever heard in my life, considering what it's about. How are you, though? Consider that.
I'm doing great. Thanks a lot for asking. And yeah, Aiden's book is called Conflicting Loyalties. And his name is Aiden Gabor, and he's written this book that was released in late 2023, and you can find it where you get your books. The subtitle is My Life as a Mob Enforcer Turned DOJ Informant. So you get a very clear idea of what this is about. He does have conflicting loyalties, being to the, I guess, mafia family that he worked with, and also with law enforcement and trying to take down corrupt cops and politicians. And so this is a really pretty wild interview.
Yeah, a really fascinating human being, because I imagine that he's not seeing himself as being needed to be rehabilitated. It wasn't a matter of justifying any previous actions that he had taken in the past. And you'll understand when you listen to this that his level of regrets are kind of hazy. Like, that line is kind of hazy. And it's, again, very fascinating. He is a great person. And you can go to the website for the book as well, conflictingloyalties.com, and you can read a little bit about him, and you can get your book through all the links there. And you can follow him on Instagram at Conflicting Loyalties Book, or on Twitter at Gabor Aiden.
All right, follow us on social media at Crawlspace Podcast or Crawlspace Pod, and make sure to check out Aiden's book. And we'll break real quick for commercial, and we'll be right back with Aiden Gabor.
And a thank you to our sponsors. Back to the program.
Welcome to the podcast, Aiden Gabor. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you guys doing? You guys doing good?
Yeah, we're doing really well. Really happy to have you on the show. You wrote probably what is one of the most riveting books that we've received that's come our way in a while. It has like the most appropriate title, I think, that's come our way in a while as well. But before we get to that, I'm sure everybody out there wants to know who you are. What's a bit of your backstory? Can you update us on this?
It's basically what you see in the book, or what you read in the book. I came from a background, and my dad is associated with a family, and I kind of got into it. And then after everything started coming down, I was in school, and the DOJ came by. I started working from them, going after bad politicians and officers that are supposed to uphold the law. And then basically from there, I found my spiritual, after going a life of being, I guess you could say, a shithead or not being a great, nice person, I finally found some spirituality in my life. And, going through some very, very dark times, I'm trying to be positive and be a positive person in the world today.
That's amazing. And the title of the book is Conflicting Loyalties. I just want to get right into it, if you don't mind. I just want to get right into how you come right out of your corner swinging, and you hit this gut punch with a diagnosis that you were given by a doctor. So I guess there's two questions there. At what point did you realize that was the correct title? And at what point did you realize that was the correct way to tell your story?
I came out, I'm going to be honest, I did not want to do the book. A friend of mine, Sam, said, I was having some issues, and my wife, Sabrina, was like, he's having night terrors, throwing me to the ground, he's screaming, he's yelling at things, screaming pain, I tell him pull the trigger, stupid things I'd be saying, and he came down, and he started talking to me, and we kind of, I don't trust too many people in this world. And he got me talking, and he said, we're going to do this as a therapy. We want you, you need to get this out. You need to get this out. You need to get out of your system. And as we started going, first thing he's like, you really need to do this into a book. I mean, I got out swinging because I came out when the doctors say, you got ALS. And first I'm like, what the hell is that? Like Lou Gehrig's disease. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, there is no cure. There's just time. We just have to work. But there's so much advancements going right now that you can probably have a little bit of time as long as you do what you're supposed to do and change your lifestyle. I was never a religious person. I used to joke I worked for the other guy. And I just had that, God's got a sense of humor. You do something bad, he's gonna screw with you, and you're gonna get your comeuppance, I guess you can say it. That's how the book started out. We want to start out with, this is what's going on, and then let's go with how everything started in my life.
Wow, yeah, it's a very interesting beginning, because then you go back in time to the early 80s when you're on the football field, getting hit so hard that you can taste your own blood. There's a line in there that you said that I feel like is quite indicative of the rest of the story, but you said violence is a drug. And you said, I got high off hitting someone as hard as I could. I got even higher when they hit me back. Can you tell us a little bit about that mentality?
Yeah, I used to love, I would love to hit or be hit. It didn't matter to me. Whenever I did, I lowered my head, lowered my shoulder, and just ran over everybody. I wasn't afraid of getting hit. I prefer to give the punishment too. What it is, eventually I found out I really didn't have any empathy. I wasn't worried. I was never scared of dying. I was never worried about hurting somebody. Never bothered me. I'm still working on this to this day, but I was diagnosed with no empathy, almost on a sociopath, I guess, mentality that, I'm not, I treat people fairly, respect's a big thing, but I have no care if I hurt you. I really don't. That doesn't bother me. And like I said, I struggle with that every day. And yeah, when I hit Marisa, I used to love it. I mean, I was never a fan of my own blood, but you know what? If somebody else got hurt, I might get sucked to be them. That was how I looked at it. It is what it is.
Yeah, can you take us back to that time? Because you tell a story about stealing cars when you were 16.
Overall, I think I did 6 cars. I was like 15 when Eddie taught me how to, and a couple guys in the crew and at the shop would show me, hey, this is how back in the day, you popped it, you used to use a screwdriver, you could do this, or you can learn, like, to tell me how to hot wire either way. Certain cars were easier than others. They actually had a set of keys that were from like Fords that you could use to open up every damn car there was, and that was easy. But then you had to struggle with the keys to get through it. But the other way was just faster. You could pop the door and pop the lock, and you're gone. I learned that. I really didn't do as many of those as I probably could have, but I did it. And Eddie, growing up, I was like 7, 8, 9, right around there. They'd have parties, and it'd be like a family, a gathering, and they'd have the old people from the old country there. We'd have great food, and I'd be goofing around like, hey, go get me this, go get me that. I'm like, yes, sir. My dad's like, you need to treat respect. And he'd go get a beer and bring it to him and all that. And growing up, I would get into fights. With the other, I was the youngest, but I was really big for my age. We get in the fights, and we come in bloodied, and they're like, what's going on? And we're like, we were playing. And then one time the cops came and asked me what was going on, because we had a gravel back area, and I was kind of bloodied up, and I said nothing. He was teaching me how to wrestle. I said, I don't want to fucking talk to you. They weren't too friendly to me after that. But yeah, the early life with the cars and all that, I just with the crew, I started moving up with them, and just it rolled a ball from there.
And you started off so young in this world, and you just mentioned with the crew. Is there a singular moment that you can remember that stands out to you as like, that's the moment that it clicked in my head that this was going to be my path?
I used to, honestly, when I really started at that age, I would take my bike, I would run packages and pick up packages. It really just started out running this, don't look in it, bring it back. I would get $20, $40, $50. At that age, you'd run to the local candy store and you'd load up. I mean, you're a king. I mean, I get my buddies and like, where'd you get this? I just got it from a friend. And they're like, oh, cool. We just go and do stupid things like that. And as it gone up, I started, I'm like, okay, people started saying, hey, Aiden, how you doing? And it's like talking to me and like being really nice and like respect, everything good. Okay, all right, tell Eddie I'm doing good. So I'm like, well, this is pretty cool. And I kind of just went from there with that. And then start working the shop, clean up a little bit here and helping bringing tools to the guys. And there'd be guys in there playing cards, and I'd go talk to them. We had a guy, I didn't really put him in a book. His name was Nicky. Nicky was the one, if Nicky was doing something, he was the end all with anything. So if he wanted to do something, it was not a good outcome for the person. He was older than that, a little older than Eddie, but he started out with Eddie. And he would teach me. He taught me a lot of things because for some reason he liked my dad, so he liked me. I learned a lot from there, and I thought, yeah, I can do this. I can do this. This looks like it could be fun. But I was also, you also learn, and my father told me, you're Hungarian, you're not Italian, so he didn't want me really, because this is not a good future. But you do your own path. And that's how that started.
And just for context and to be clear, you've mentioned names like Eddie and Nicky, and you're Hungarian, not Italian, and you said the crew. To be clear, we're talking about the mafia, right?
Yeah, you kind of called yourself the La Mafia, La Family. It's more of a family. It really wasn't. Eddie was basically, you can call him a coppa, and he would basically ran the crew. The area was in, everybody had their own parts. Like nowadays talk about gangs had their own territory. We had our own territory. And that's how everybody did their area. The only time there was any issues if you poached. If you weren't poached in somebody's territory, there's a problem. Or if you tried to muscle on somebody else's, coming into territory again or doing something like that. That's really how all that really worked out. But yeah, basically it's considered the mafia.
Okay. And so after you were stealing cars, it sounds like you kind of got involved as a bit of an enforcer. There's a part here where it says that if people didn't pay up, you would pay them a visit with a baseball bat or an ice pick. Can you tell us about this?
I learned that we had Dominic, and he was Eddie's right hand, and he was doing most of the enforcing. And Eddie's like, "Hey, this kid's got, The first time I really got in there and I got upset, we had a problem with somebody, and I just went off and I beat the guy pretty bad. They were beaten up, and Eddie's like, "This guy could be something with you, Dominic." And Dominic used to treat me like shit and pushed me around, and he hit me. So one day he hit me. He pushed me down, and I landed. I picked up, I'm going to say a little pipe, and I went and hit him with it. And he turned around, and I think at that point, if Eddie didn't step in, I probably wouldn't be here right now. That was the first time somebody pulled a gun on me, and I stood back up, and Eddie jumped in and said, "That's enough fucking bullshit. Stop." And then I got that, hey, there's a honor and respect of each other. We don't do that shit with ourselves. Eddie kind of explained to me. So Dominic said, "All right, take him and show him some routes and stuff." So we started going, and the first time I went with Dominic, he was sitting there saying something like, whatever. He just flat out, he was driving, he just punched me. And he was big, way bigger than me. And it's like those cartoons. I just saw stars, I guess you can say. And he's like, that we're not fucking even, but that's it. That's for you fucking hitting me. And we would go talk to people that would go, and sometimes you had to give motivation, is what I was told. And yeah, you had a baseball bat, we had pipes, we had a blackjack. Blackjack was always a good one to use. And then an ice pick, and the first thing in the ice pick was Nicky. And he told me, this is where you put it. You put it in the back of their neck real quick. You could put it in there. But the big thing with that, you can hit somebody with it 5 or 6 times. They'll go through a vest, go through anything, and you can take off. There's no prints on there. But it penetrates anything. Knife is more for cutting. and an ice pick is more for let's get an attention getter, and you can get the fuck out of there. So yeah, we would pay visit, and to this day, I carry an ice pick. I carry a gun and an ice pick on me at all times, and it's just habit.
Well, I mean, that'd be great at a cocktail party in case you have to chop up some ice to, fill some glasses.
I've actually done that.
Yeah. Oh, of course. I just got to ask, what is so great about using a blackjack? Is that the thing that you use to open cars with? That police use to open cars with?
A blackjack would be a leather. It's like a leather. How do you explain? It's like a flat steel, flexible rod that would be all covered by leather. And you could hit the crap out of somebody, and it really bruises, but doesn't leave marks. But you could knock somebody the next week with that, and the odds are you're not going to kill them, but you're going to get their attention. And that was a good one, but we had that, but it wasn't as much. Now, if you want, that's not going to do anything major damage. It's just an attention getter. I learned that. Again, the baseball bats you can carry in your car, and you get, as long as you put a mitt and baseball with it, you're good. That would be the thing that if you needed to really get somebody's attention, like, okay, break a leg or an arm or bust a knee or ankle. Ankles were the best to do. But that's kind of how I got into that. I'm going to be honest with you, I enjoyed it. It's stupid as that sounds. I did.
Why were ankles the best?
Because you hit somebody down there and they're going to know about it and they're not going to forget about it. You get their knee is pretty good, but an ankle, there's not much padding down there. The knee's not much, but I don't know. I like the sound of it when you get down there, but that was about it.
I feel like you're not expecting it either. As a recipient of that, you're not expecting a shot to your ankle. Like the knee is the obvious one, so it's probably a bit unexpected.
Yeah, plus they went right to the ground. So once they're on the ground, you kind of had them. There's nothing they can do. Defensively, you're low, so you're down on the ground right away.
Wow. So how long did you spend working with this family?
I was 18, 17 going on 18. Yeah, I'd say my 18. Eddie's like, he came up, he said, we're going to have to go. We're all just there. They're arresting a couple of guys. They're out there. He goes, I'm leaving. I'm not going to tell you to go, but I'll find a way to get a hold of you. Just, you need to get better in your life, make something better. Go to school. You got the opportunity, do it. He said, right now, look what's happening. We're all getting hit by the feds. And this new thing out there, they're coming after us. He didn't tell me exactly the whole thing. He said, just keep an eye on my son. And I said, just now and then, just check on him. I said, yes, sir. And that was it. He was gone. I went, and I went to school until the day the DOJ showed up.
What happened then? Did they try to convince you to work with them, or how did that go down? They
came up, and I'm going into my dorm, and these two freaking clowns are sitting there, and I'm looking at them like, who the fuck are you? And they kind of laughed at me and said, hey, we got to talk. I said, what? And then they flashed their little, I guess, GI, whatever the fuck you want to call them, their little badges and their trinkets, and they showed it, and I'm like, yeah, and they're like, we need to talk. And I'm like, and he goes, no, I go, I under arrest? He goes, you want to be? You will be if you don't listen. So I said, whatever. So I went with him. We went to one of those diners, one that with the big A-frame used to be. I don't think they're even around anymore. And we went in there, and we're sitting there, and they ordered something, and you want something to drink, whatever. I'm like, whatever, I'll take water. And they threw this envelope at me, and it had had pictures in it. And they had my mom with Eddie, my dad with Eddie, and a bunch of them. My mom with Nikki and Dominic, and then me with them, and everybody. He goes, do you know what the RICO laws are? I'm like, what? Maybe you should look it up since you're a college boy. You need to look this shit up because this is what you're looking at. You're looking at, and I didn't know shit. 70 years in prison, and then we're going to arrest your mother, we're going to arrest your father, we're going to arrest everybody unless you do what we're asking. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I ain't saying shit about anybody, any of the guys. And they go, no, we don't give a shit about them. That's old news. We want you to do something for us. I'm like, what? Well, we'll let you know. We want you to think about this. Let us know what you think. So they take me, drop me back off. I go in my room, and I'm sitting in there a month and a half later, and now I'm sitting there sweating. For a month and a half, I didn't sleep well because, my honest opinion, my father, I love him, but I didn't give a shit Really, it was my mom, and I was a mama's boy. I think everybody out there, every man out there, is a mama's boy. If they're not, they're liars. That's just my feeling of it. And I was more scared of my mother, going to jail over something stupid I may have done. So when they came back, they said, "This is what we want. We want you to drink your way out of school." Party your way out of school. And at the end of the year, semester, take a year of school, and then we want you to quit, and then we want you to we're going to tell you what we want you to do. We'll give you money too. All right. So I partied my way out, did stupid things. Got home. They met me in a way of several towns over, and they say, "We want you to get into this department, get on this police department, test and get on, and then we'll go from there what we want you to do." I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding me? You want to be a cop?" "Yeah." "When you get on, you're going to be by yourself. You're not like, can be anything. You're not going to have basically any backup. You're on your own. So something happens to you, we can give a shit. We don't care. You're going in as, we want you just information. We want you just to give information, and that's it. We don't care what happens to you." And I thought, well, that's pretty shitty, but okay. And then when I went home, I told my mom and dad, "I'm dropping out of school." And my dad's like, "What the fuck are you going to do with your life?" And I looked at him and I go, "Well," he goes, "Aiden, what the fuck are you going to do?" I go, "I want to be a cop." "What? You'll be a fucking flatfoot? Get the fuck out of my house." He got up and left. And for several years, my father and I didn't talk after that. Then I went back and they started telling me what they wanted me to do.
And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsors, and now we're back to the program.
Do you have any idea what the process was, the selection process that led them to you?
No, other than that, I was the idiot. They, the pictures had me with several other people, and I don't know, but, my only thinking of it is, when I was doing all this stuff, there's a lot of police officers that would come over there. There's a lot of politicians that I would run the packages to and pick up packages. And then at the garage and stuff, they would be sitting there. And I'm like, one of them I saw, I'm like, you a cop? And he's like, "Yeah." Show me his badge and everything. And he explained, "Oh yeah, he's a good kid. He's going to be the Aiden's, he's going to be part of the crew. And I'll just, keep him in mind, keep him, and don't let people fuck with him." Okay. And I think that's the reason they wanted to. Basically, the way I could see it is you want to get rid of a bunch of fucking snakes, throw a snake in there. Somebody they're not going to be expecting. What's the odds on me becoming a police officer and not being a bad police officer, be somebody I'm, doing something I shouldn't be doing?
Did you go to the police academy and all those things?
Yeah. I went.
Wow.
Which department I got on. I never been arrested when I was younger, so there was nothing for them to look for other than I quizzed about my associations, but there's not much. And I was a kid. Why'd you leave school? Well, it wasn't for me. I kind of partied my way out. And they're like, all right. The first department, it wasn't tough getting on anyway. I got on there, and when I got on there, did the little academy, basically physical and psychological, and you get in there and you learn in law enforcement. And I'm very, very pro law enforcement, and I am learning that there's a blue line. I started learning about the blue line. You don't talk about other officers, men and women in there, because you put the blinders on, but you know what? You don't betray you don't cross the blue line. You don't betray other officers. But at the same sense, after I started going through everything, I'm thinking, okay, the guys they want me to look at, they're supposed to be upholding law, yet they're not. So I didn't like the guys to start with, and you know what? Okay, they were supposed to be upholding law, they're not.
And while you were getting yourself sort of ingratiated into their culture, did you establish any good relationships at all with some of your colleagues? Any friendships happen that you knew that they were doing something?
Growing up was a police officer, and that was my second department. First department they wanted me to see how it went was they had a guy on there that they were pretty sure was acting as a hitman. And I thought, okay, really? You guys really have a sense of humor. They're like, okay, we want you just to get a hold of this guy's Terry. You need to just talk to him, see what you can get on him, see what you can learn. But this is what we think. Basically, got in there and met him. He was a jagoff. And he was a dick. I didn't like him. Nobody liked him. He's like a loner. He just had that arrogance to him that I just didn't care for. I like arrogance. Like, okay, so I started getting close to him. And the Glock guys in the apartment are like, whoa, hey, Aiden, why are you talking with that guy? That guy's an asshole. I'm like, well, yeah, somebody's, nobody wants to ride with him. I'll go with him. Fuck it. And I kind of pretended to be his friend, and I did not like him. And eventually, we went out to have a couple beers one time. He looked at me. He goes, I know you. What? I know you. I've seen you before. I'm like, okay, good for you. And he was like, well, you ran with Eddie in them. And I'm like, okay, that's not like, anybody in the neighborhood and stuff probably would know this. He goes, no, I see you because I used to, and he said another crew. I'm like, okay, I don't really know those guys, but that's good for you. And he goes, yeah, I would have loved to have done what you did. And I go, okay, well, you know what? It wasn't all, what you think it is. It was all right. So we got talking, and after a couple months, several months, he kind of started telling me, he got drunk, really drunk. He was a gulper. And I started drinking bad too. He told me, he goes, I do know. I'm with the guys. I'm going to do hits for him. I'm like, you're fucking what? Why are you telling me this? And he's telling me about it. Like, he was bragging about it because you'd understand. I go, sure. What are you doing? So he's telling me about the stuff hits are doing. And I'm just looking at him with this like, okay, you shitting me? We went out, and then his wife came a couple times, and she was all right. She was a little goofy, but one time we were getting pretty wasted, and we went back to the house, and we were just bullshitting. She's telling me, she's crying. He went to the bathroom. He's like, I don't know what to do. He told me about you. And I'm like, you need to just shut up about this. She goes, I don't know if I can take it anymore. I go, you just need to shut the fuck up about it and not worry about what he's done or what's going on. And then when I went back and saw Dumb and Dumber, and I said, hey, this is what's going on. He is who he said he is. What do you want me to do? He goes, well, what else did he say? And I told him, but honestly, if you want some, pump the wife. She's ready to crumble. This is killing her and saying she knows everything. He told her everything. I said, do you need me? And they go, no, they don't want me to testify because once you testify, you're one and done. That's it. You can't do anymore. We have some other things we want you to do. This is kind of a test. So they end up arresting Dumbass, and he ended up getting for his wife, basically, is when they gave the evidence for everything.
So at that point, I bet the officers who enlisted you in this gave you a shining accommodation. They probably gave you a bump in pay. I'm sure they were incredibly appreciative of your services.
No. Not really. They were just, okay, you did what you're supposed to do. We want you to, go to another department. And like, okay, well, we want you to head to your, I go, my hometown? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? No, this is what we want you to do. Do we know there's several bad police? I go, no, there's a lot. There's a lot of them over there. And go, well, that's what we want. So once the arrest happened to him, there was like several officers left. So it didn't look bad for me leaving because everybody's like, okay, we don't know what the fuck's going on here. And they start questioning everybody. And I got out of there basically like I'm doing that. And I went to the other apartment and got my way on there. And the funny part is when I went in there, I knew the mayor and I knew him and I knew the commissioner. I went upstairs when I put in there, like talking to me, go, Aiden, we'd love to get you on. You going to toe the line? I go, whatever you need me to do, sir. You toe the line, right? Yeah, yes, sir. Whatever you want me to do, I will do, sir. All right. That's how I got on the department there. Just get information. And I got several officers and the mayor and commissioner and everybody. I got them for what they did and the information they needed, video on some of them, and, the ones working with the gangs and stuff. And I knew the gangs because when I ran with the crew, Eddie used to tell us we didn't sell drugs. There's one thing you don't do. We don't do back then. You don't do drugs. You do not sell, but let the gang sell to their own people. Okay. And we're still going to cut. We worked together. We didn't do what stuff with them. And we had a camaraderie that there's an issue. We took care of it with them. And we were a little more at that time, a little more brutal. I knew how they were working with those guys. And I had a friend of mine that was a high level gang. I gotta say, he was a drug dealer I went to high school with too. He was one of the top ones in the area. So I would get information from him on the guys on the department that were doing things for people he knew.
Were you ever recording privately with audio or video or both?
No, because, I'll be honest, these guys, whenever I did talk, they would search. I'm like, what are you getting off on this? A lot of times, there's one incident where one of them, I was walking into the department and he was in front of me and we went up the stairs and he turned around and he put the gun to my head. And I'm looking up now and I could see right down the barrel, see the notching in the gun and see the barrel. And I'm looking down this clock and I'm going, what the fuck you want? So I just think in my head, I go, fucking pull the trigger. I'm sure you can get away with it. Because I seen him get away with when I first started there doing something where he killed somebody and they didn't give a shit about him killing somebody. They were worried about all the other stuff that he got away with it. It was shown as self-defense. And once that's done, they weren't going to bring that up again. It's kind of the way I was told. He put it, I just told him, you want to be what I was. You were always there with Eddie and them. I was part of the machine. You were a cog. You were interchangeable. But if I went, the machine broke down. When you go, you be interchangeable. What the fuck you want? Now, if you think that, pull the fucking trigger. I'm here doing my own thing. You doing your thing. I don't give a shit what you're doing. And don't give a shit what I'm doing. And he kind of laughed and we went up there. Went upstairs. And at the time, I had a friend of mine, Don, that I grew up with that was working there. And Don was doing something and he overheard them talking with the commissioner, and he's like, hey, Aiden's toting the line. He said he's going to toe the line. I believe him. Look where he came from. He's good stock. Yeah, I don't like him. No, that doesn't mean he's not going to toe the line. He came up and down like, what the fuck are you doing? I go, I'm not doing anything. What are they talking about? I have no idea. Okay. Doing all that, and then it got to the point where I was becoming a pretty big drinker. And I became, I could say I became a gulper. I was a bad alcoholic. And during this time, I was having hallucinations and nightmares of St. Michael with the flaming sword coming at me and saying, I'm betraying everybody, that you are betraying everybody, that you are not a good officer, you're betraying other officers. And I'm freaking out. And I would tell you that I know of at least a couple hundred times. I had a 357 Magnum. I would put a Magnum load in there, spin the chamber, and pull it in my mouth or my temple, at least one of them. That's what I remember, and probably another couple hundred I don't remember. And for some reason, God didn't want it to go, and it never went off. And my buddy Don found me in a Fleabag motel one day, stupering. My ex didn't really, she was not a nice person either, but it was more like, yeah, he's out. He's doing something. Who knows what? Yeah, he basically brought me back from my edge of complete destruction. And then eventually he got me a lot of information too, not knowing. And eventually he figured it out. And it's like, are you shitting me type of thing.
You said you found yourself with that gun in a Russian roulette type situation a couple of hundred times?
Oh, yeah. I was every other night. I was drinking. Man, I'm going to tell you, I was drinking a lot of scotch, a lot of bourbon, you name it. And I was down, and I would remember picking it up and said, fuck it, I'm done. And I'd spin it and pull the trigger, spin it, pull the trigger. And it never went off. And it was a live round in there. I know for a fact I always had one because I'd wake up. When I wake up, I find it. I'm like, fuck, there's a live round in here. And I remember doing it. Sometimes I don't remember doing it. And when Don found me, he said the gun was in my hand and with a live round in it. And he's like, what the hell is your problem? He helped me. I got some help with him on that. And mentally, I was feeling I was betraying the blue line. I was betraying other officers. I was so much in the dark that I felt like I really, really fucked up. But then in the same sense, I realized that these guys needed to be taken down because they're supposed to be helping protecting people, and someone needs to stop this.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsor.
And a thank you to our sponsors. Back to the program.
Well, did you ever feel like you were doing the right thing when you worked, for the family or when you worked as an informant?
Working with everybody, with the guys, it was awesome. That was a family. Law enforcement, it became a job, but it was I loved my brothers and sisters I worked with, the other officers that were there to protect. They were great guys. I mean, I don't talk to any of them now, but it was another family, I felt. And there's a lot of times when we were out there going through all this that we dealt with the cesspool of people out there and had to protect and do things like that. And we protected each other with that. And I learned, hey, that's where I felt like, am I betraying these guys by doing this? When everything went down, that fucking department just went to pieces. And another time everybody bailed to sinking ship. But there's a lot of people that needed to bail. And yeah, I felt like shit. And then I felt that I'm doing the right thing. These two jackasses from DOJ, they didn't give a shit. I was a means for an outcome they wanted. Basically, when it was over, they basically said, hey, here's a stipend, have a nice life. That was it.
I'm curious what your opinion is on the difference between being rehabilitated and having some form of redemption. So the difference between rehabilitation and redemption, if you believe in either one of those concepts, and if you do you believe that you are either one of them? Are you rehabilitated? Have you been redeemed? Or if you don't believe in that at all, you just think life is what it is?
Life is what it is. That's how I look at it. Rehabilitation, I mean, what am I being really, what am I? I mean, I went from bad, very bad, to now helping the world. I guess you can say that. I never looked at it that way. Redemption, I don't think I ever can redemption. I don't regret. I'm going to tell you what, I don't regret one thing. I'd probably do it all over again. But now knowing, I basically would probably tell the DOJ to kiss my ass. Other than that, no, I have no redemption or no remorse for that. As far as redemption, yeah, probably. Thanks to the Baha'i faith and of the Baha'i, I believe spiritually there's a different feeling in myself after I was started that it's I feel a better person, and I try my life now on to be a better person and to make the world a better place.
Why would you, if you could do it all over again, tell the DOJ to kiss your ass?
Because, I mean, the way they did it, I didn't like it, and I don't know how they work, and I'll be honest to you. I fuck the government, don't trust them after this. I don't trust them at all. I think it's because the way they came at me and told me my mom and I would go to jail for 70 years. And eventually I realized that they couldn't do that. They had nothing on my mom. My dad probably had something, but I don't know what. With me, they didn't have anything on me. I mean, other than I was hanging out with them, but I was young. I mean, but at the time I had no clue. They scared the shit out of me. That's the only part. I mean, I probably would. I don't know if I would. I'll be honest. I'm thinking I probably would, but odds are I probably ended up doing it anyway. They probably still would have found a way of scaring the shit out of me. Yeah, that's about it. Like I said, I don't trust the government, anything they do or say anymore. I don't watch the news. I don't watch TV. Only news I get is people telling me and stuff like that. I watch documentaries all day and I read the Baha'i faith and do what they have classes. Like they have Rui classes, which is basically Bible school. So I'm still learning all that.
And I'm curious if the Baha'i faith that you've mentioned coincided with your diagnosis, your ALS diagnosis.
You know what? It made me think, I guess you could say. But at the time, before I even knew that, I was starting to read it. My buddy Sam introduced me to it. And then we started talking about, I started reading it, and then that's when I started having the night terrors and stuff. I think maybe my psyche was like, okay. And then after reading some of it and after starting to do the book, I sat outside one day in the sun and the heat, and I'm looking up, and I just felt the difference in me. I felt a warmer self that, wow, okay, I've been through a lot of shit, and for some reason, I survived all this shit to just now for this. Okay, so God's screwing with me. He's got sense of humor, but I understand why, and I get it. I would have done the same thing. Maybe I can before I go, give me time to make the world a better place. I understand. I've always believed men and women are equal. I've always believed. If you look at a lot of religions, men and women are subservient to the man. I've always believed, growing up, my mom and all that, my mom ran the household, so men and women are equal, and I believe that. And like my buddy Sam says, he goes, "Hey, you've always been a Baha'i, you just didn't know it." And I feel that's true. And in the Baha'i faith, we're all equal, no matter if you're pink, purple, black, white, whatever you're all equal. We all bleed red. And if we don't bleed red and you're bleeding something different, then there's a problem with it. I'm starting to really believe that. And, one of the big things I do nowadays, too, to them, I do a lot of things with Special Olympics and special needs kids. And seeing how they look at the world, I wish we all could look at the way they look at the world as far as everybody's equal. Let's give a hug. Unless you hurt them, they think you're the greatest person in the world, no matter what your background is. That they accept you. And I think as a world, we need to understand and do that. And that's why I believe the Baha'i faith, in my opinion, even though I grew up Catholic, it was that the world is equal. Everybody's equal. And we should learn that. I know I'm rambling on with that, but then you know what? When I grew up a Catholic, I used to go out to go confessional, and I used to get in trouble because the priest, for Father John, would say, "Aiden, what have you done this week that you've done wrong?" I didn't do a fucking thing. I didn't see anything. I didn't do anything. No, Aiden, no, I didn't see nothing. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And he'd yell, "Get the fuck out of here." I was looking, and like I said, my parents were not religious, so I never really, really became religious with them until I started reading and started looking into the Baha'i faith.
Yeah, I don't think you're rambling at all. I think that's really incredible. I think it's an incredible story. And I was just thinking about the arc of this conversation. This 45-minute conversation has been such an incredible story arc where it starts with this violence and ends with this attitude and outlook that, hey, if I have the time left here, I'm going to use that to make the world a better place. And I think it's kind of endearing that you even apologize for rambling about that, because I feel like a lot of people want to hear that end cap to the story, or at least to this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, so I grew up very violent, and I've been stabbed several times, shot, you name it, and the guns pointed at me, pointed my own gun at me, but like I said, if you breathe spiritually, there's always someone there to help you. Just like I've told veterans and I've told veteran police officers that are feeling with the suicide that there's always someone to talk to. I'll talk to them forever. Whatever it takes to make you understand that, you know what, you can make the place a better place, that you're accepted, that there's people here to be with you. And I think that me going through the bullshit I went through, I don't know how I survived the shit. I think opened my eyes up to when I see it, and maybe somebody, like with the therapy of the book, is maybe somebody out there can see this and realize that, hey, you may have been a bad shithead all your life, but maybe you can redeem yourself if you look spiritually, or if you do something to make the world a better place, because if we all work together, we can make the world a better place. And if that helps one or two people reading this book, I'm happy. And I also want people to understand, because right now law enforcement are looking at as assholes, that they're bad. They're not. For every 100,000 police officers, men and women out there, one or two bad officers make them all look bad. So now they're all evil. They're all going to do this. And them know that there's somebody out there and there's people out there to stop or get the bad ones out of there. It's not, you're never going to do it. But at least there's people trying to, and that, you know what? You need to have faith in your local law enforcement and not defund them or whatever, because imagine the chaos without them. You'd have people like me in my youth and all that didn't give a shit, you don't give a shit if you hurt somebody type of no empathy out there without somebody trying to stop everything.
I'm curious, do you still experience night terrors?
Yeah, I've had them now and then. Usually it's more nowadays of me screaming and yelling at people. I haven't grabbed my wife. We haven't really slept in the same bed since some of the grabbings with it and stuff. I more sit out on the couch because of some of my breathing issues and with the pain I'm into every day, that it makes it easier. But there's been times she's come up and held me with me screaming and all that. I still have a little bit, but it's not as bad as it was. I think bringing everything out in the open has helped. And I think if you can do that, you can bring it out with some of the nights. Like my wife knows about 95% of what I've done. And she's accepted me. And she actually went through, Sabrina actually went through all my classes with me with the Baha'i faith. And 2 years of going through classes, learning the Baha'i faith, reading the book with me, doing everything. And she's not converting. She's staying with her Christian background. She's not converting, but she has that, the support group along with Sam. There's the support. I think if you have that, you can get through just about anything.
I think that's an incredible way to end this conversation, unless you have anything else to say about your backstory, but I would love to direct people to where they can find your book.
Well, we're on Amazon. We're in Barnes and Nobles. We have Aiden Gabor. There's Aiden Gabor Facebook. There's Conflicting Loyalties Facebook. Conflicting Loyalties, Twitter, all that. They can get all the information on there. But yeah, ebooks and everything. We're right on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Kobe and all that. It's on.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today, Aiden. This was a really great conversation.
Tim and Lance, it's an honor to be on the show. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And take care of yourself.
You too. Take care, guys. Thank you.